It's showtime.
There
Welcome,
we go.
everyone.
The lights are on.
Welcome, everyone, to Deep Space Franchise, which is a special sub-channel on the Zocalo, which is where Shar and I talk about that other science fiction franchise called Babylon 5. But that's not what we're going to be doing here tonight, here on Deep Space Franchise.
Nope. Unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot of Babylon 5 news to talk about since the pilot got held back a year. And sorry, we can't fill a whole hour with that. But we can definitely do it with what we're talking about tonight, Norm.
Absolutely. And we're so glad that everyone's here and you have joined us, from your other panel, or if you're just joining us in general. Thank you for being here. Thank you for giving up your time, your Friday night or your Friday afternoon, because
it's Saturday.
Is it Saturday already?
It's Saturday.
I can't believe it.
It's okay. Time is a weird construct that doesn't exist anymore in the 2020s.
I think I've said that maybe 5 or 6 times today, maybe in emails and texts and things like that. So you know what? I've bought everyone a day. Thank me.
So Sunday we had daylight savings, but now we have day savings. Is that
exactly?
Correct?
I'm starting a whole new trend. Hashtag day savings.
I don't care anymore. However we want to get all wibbly wobbly and timey wimey, whatever. It's fine. It's fine.
So it's Saturday. I just double checked Char's math, and she's absolutely 100% right. Forgive me.
For once, I am right with my math. You guys, note it on the calendar. This is a seminal moment. This is a day.
So it's nice to see a lot of Zocalo fans and Zocalo friends and friends of a show that Char and I, we used to do a little bit more on a regular basis, and now we do it very kind of semi-regularly, semi-not regularly basis, because we are off doing different things. We'll get back to that in a little bit, but we just wanted to thank everyone for being here. Thank everyone for supporting the virtual TrekCon and supporting this panel. So thank you so much
for having us.
All right. So what we do here, or at least what we do on the Zocalo and what we've done in the past, we start off the show with a very time-honored tradition. Now, if you want to, you can have your adult beverage of choice. If you don't want to, you can still raise a glass, because this is how we kick off our show. We kick our show off with a very hearty and salutatory Val-2.
Yes, Val-2. Now, I have the party cup, but it's water in here tonight.
I have the Janeway cup, so it is coffee in here tonight.
That is a Janeway cup. Is there a nebula in your coffee?
Well, there's always a nebula in that coffee. So,
and hopefully that nebula cup of coffee is a nebula.
There's a nebula between. There's a nebula behind you. There's a nebula behind me. And the reason why I chose this particular one, if you can see it through like the really amazing green screen technology that I have working behind me.
Yes. Not quite as good as what we're used to on Zoom, is it?
No, not quite. But that's neither here nor there. It's purple, and it's exciting because we're going to be talking about the first 10 episodes of Star Trek Prodigy, where there is also a lot of purple and exciting things happening on that show as well.
So much purple. And now that you explain why you use that background, dang it, what was I thinking?
It's a whole theme thing. I love theming things out, Char. I do.
You're very good at it.
All right, so we're going to say hi to as many people in the chat as we can. Hello, Teppy Lizard.
Okay.
Leo, thanks for being here. Just Rosie 5. I love being Just Rosie. Andrew, let's see, scrolling down. Earl, thanks for being here. Earl. Anne Marie, thank you for inviting us back. It's really great to be back. Dracorex, very gamery sounding.
Oh, that's name.
Marina.
Yes, she is somebody I know who's on Twitter a lot, very much a Voyager fan.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you for being here. Love the name. Might steal it for my next Diablo campaign. Let's see who else we have here. Vardogheim. Am I pronouncing that right? I don't want to say War Dogheim, but it sounds also really cool and gamery.
It does.
Mohammed Noor, thank you for being here. Doctor?
Hey, Dr. Mohammed Noor. I watched your game trivia panel with Anne Marie and Weather Katie earlier today. That was fun.
We have Peter. Thank you for being here. Glenn, thank you also for being here. Kimber, nice to see you. Linda, thank you everyone for joining us.
Wow, so many names here.
I know.
Amazing.
And familiar as well, right?
A lot of familiar faces. Yeah. Okay, so wow.
Char and I are going to jump
here.
Yeah, well, Char and I are going to jump into the conversation points because we know that we're a little pressed for time. We only have a hard hour here.
Yes.
But we are going to take a look at the chat from time to time too. So, don't worry. We're going to get to a lot of your comments as soon as we can. But the one thing that Char and I, we've done in the past, and Char, this is no secret between you and I, and shouldn't be a secret to the chat out there. Char and I chat every single Thursday when Prodigy comes out, or at least when Prodigy was coming out. And it's
Yeah.
sad that our tradition has stopped a little bit, but we're going to get to that, when it returns. But our phones are just blowing up every single time Prodigy comes out, right?
Yeah, the moment I wake up on a Thursday when a new Prodigy debuts, I get my breakfast, my coffee, sit down, watch Prodigy, and then as soon as I'm done, I message Norm and say, "You ready?" And we talk for at least an hour and a half every time. And it
Every
just goes
time.
by like nothing.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And
you
that's
and I go into this show really deep, and it's so much fun because we both, I think I can speak for both of us when I say we fell in love with this show very quickly, like pretty much from the moment it hit.
right. And it's fair to say, Sharon, I'm not gonna blurt out our age range here on the air because, as you know, 21 over again is fabulous. It always is. You know, I mean, we both celebrated our 21st birthdays again this year, so I think that's
Many
fantastic.
times over,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. But there's a certain age aspect to Prodigy, and it's something that I found very interesting and sometimes concerning about how Prodigy is framed in social media. And sometimes people are saying that I really like Prodigy, even though it's just a kid show. So let's take a look at
What
that.
is it?
Is it just a kid show?
Yeah, let's tear that down.
Hmm.
Let's just say that that's where we're headed right here and now. I think it's the Nickelodeon logo that throws a lot of people off, thinking, "Oh, this show is just for kids." And if you just watch it, it is anything but. But until you do, you might be misled into thinking it is just for children. Consider it to be family Trek. This is something that the whole family can watch
Hmm.
all together and enjoy. It doesn't matter if you are young, if you're older, if you have ever watched Star Trek before, if you have. There's something here for everybody. And I would argue that it is the best entry point for a new fan of all of the new Trek that's come out in the last few years.
I mean, I feel about that the same way. And one of the things that, you know, obviously pairing with Nickelodeon and having that partnership between Paramount Plus and Nickelodeon, there's a certain marketing influence. You know, when you see that red Nickelodeon rocket logo atop the Star Trek Prodigy logo, do yourself a favor, fans out there. When that logo comes up, just kind of shield the Nickelodeon from, your vision and see if that actually, if it connotes a different meaning to you, if it actually changes your perspective about the show. It does for me, and it does for people that have actually tried this experiment with. So I'm
Hmm.
not to disparage Nickelodeon, because obviously the partnership is working and it's very strong, but there is a certain element to framing your entry into a project, into a series, where you're like, oh, this is just for kids. Now, with Lost and Found, there was a certain element in the very early on of that episode where it felt very Star Warsy. It felt very kind of like Star Wars Rebels,
Sure.
Star Wars Clone Wars, and that was kind of like a hurdle for people to like get over. But once you settle in to the actual content of it,
It only goes up from there.
right? And I don't think that that's misleading the audience in any way. I think you're right, Shari. I 100% agree with the whole, it's family Trek. It's destination Star Trek for the entire family, for parents and children, or maybe for sometimes just children. But it's one of those things where the family can actually sit down and watch it together without hesitation, let's say.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would say there's very few reservations about watching this show with younger children of really any age. I mean, one of the interesting things that has been interesting to see is that parents with the target demographic of kids in an age range between, say, anywhere from like 3 to 12, hearing just what they're getting out of it on
Mhm.
the level that they're getting it, you know? And as these kids grow up, they're going to watch it again and again and again. And each time, because they're getting older and learning more, they're going to get something different out of it. How cool is that?
I mean, that's kind of the secret that we're unlocking right now with Star Trek, especially with Star Trek Prodigy. I want to pivot here to a question by Linda. Linda says, "Is Prodigy, or asks, is Prodigy too advanced for kids? What is the best age range for kids to start watching?"
That's a really good question.
Mhm.
Norm, what in your judgment is that range? Do you have one?
Well, on Mission Log Prodigy, which is the podcast that I do for the Roddenberry Network, we've had children as young as 3 years old call in with their comments about the show. But at the same time, though, they're also watching it with their parents. So it really depends on if you're a young adult watching it for yourself, or if you are a parent or a set of parents that are watching it with your children so that you can explain to your children what is happening during the course of the episode, whether it's too scary or whether the concepts are maybe going a little bit over your children's understanding. But at the same time, though, is even when I say that, some of the comments that we've received on that show uh, were from children seeing their perspective of Prodigy in their own way, even if they don't articulate it the way that their parents say help them with, but they see
Sure.
it in a very special, particular way. And who's to say that that's not the right way,
Right?
right?
Yeah, that's sort of what I was trying to say, only you put it much more eloquently, where a 3-year-old can watch it. A
Sure.
5-year-old might enjoy it more. A 9-year-old might get even more out of it. And say even a 12-year-old watching it on their own with or without parents is probably going to get some good stuff out of it too. It works on so many levels. It's versatile.
I think so. I agree with that. And, they have the very talented specialists, I should say, writers, producers, people that are involved in creating young adult entertainment, like the Hagemans, who are coming off of Troll Hunters for Netflix, who are coming off of Ninjago and other features that have specifically targeted a young adult audience. So it's not like the track record isn't there. The track record is very much there. And I think that was a huge boon for the series when a lot of fans were maybe a little trepidatious on trying out the series, because Lower Decks, it just came out prior to Prodigy. Not just, but it was already there prior to Prodigy. It was an animated series of its own kind. And I'm
Yes.
sure that the Star Trek audience out there was like, do I really want to invest myself in another animated series that looks something like out of the Star Wars market?
If
Mhm.
anything, I think that is what scared a lot of people at first is, oh, is this just going to be, pew, pew, pew?
Mhm.
And even though they actually have a line of pew, pew, pew in one of the earlier episodes, it's anything but. It's one of those things where you really have got to try it out. Star Trek is like Baskin Robbins now. We've got so many wonderful flavors. Watch a couple of episodes and see if it's for you.
True.
See if it's appropriate for your children. See if your children are interested. And yeah, I think it's a fantastic experience that so many parents are able to share their love of Star Trek with their kids now because of this show.
There are still traditional telltale signs that this is a Star Trek show, and I think one of them that you and I have both commented on in our private conversations, it's the outsider looking in. Now, what I mean by that is the Spock character, the Odo character, the Data character, the Neelix character, characters that they find their found family within the experiences of being on board with the crew, sharing these experiences, sharing these moments with them, sharing the memories that make them the characters who they are, and understanding this is how we break down the human condition and understand it through the Star Trek lens. And that's usually one character, Shar, but we've mentioned that
Yeah.
in this series, it's all the characters, right?
Yeah, that is one thing that makes it so unique is with the exception of Janeway, none of our main characters barely even know anything about Starfleet.
Mhm.
It might be a completely foreign concept to them going in. So that is why it is such a good entry point, is because you don't have to know anything more than what these characters know because they're going in fresh just like you. And then what's been so great about these first 10 episodes is showing what Starfleet does mean, its ideals, and watching our characters slowly kind of go into that
Mhm.
and start embracing the Starfleet ideals and realizing that things like working together and looking out for one another and all these things that they thread throughout these episodes, you see it working and you see why it works. And it's not just a great thing for kids to see, I think it's a great thing for all of us to see.
Absolutely. I'd like to read some of the chat responses to what we've been saying, because it seems like a lot of
Let's
our
do it.
chat has agreed. So
Okay, cool.
Andrew says, I love having a Star Trek that my 5-year-old can enjoy.
Now, see, isn't that awesome? I
That's
love
amazing.
that.
I love hearing that, right?
Me too. And just
And
for the record, neither one of us has kids. So we're
cats.
living that vicariously through all of you, but I love hearing about it.
Our cats don't watch Star Trek Prodigy with us, right?
No, I do have a cat that watches Babylon 5, but that's another story.
Okay, well, you have a GOG, right? So that's all right.
A gawk, yes.
A GOG, yeah.
I have two.
Teppy says, "Who's to say that there's only one right way about watching Star Trek? What's right for each person is right for each person in that time and space." No, of course it is. Yeah, you're
Yep,
absolutely right.
absolutely.
You know how you internalize and how you reinterpret, and then how you describe that experience to somebody else. That's through your own personal lens. Like, each one of
Right.
us has been shaped in a very certain way, in a very certain mode of thinking, because of our life experiences. When we ingest that Star Trek, and then we see what it is offering us in terms of deeper meanings or morals or messages, and then we can reinterpret that and share that with somebody else who maybe has similar life experiences or like minds. That's the beauty of the conversation of Star Trek. And I think that Prodigy, because of its format and its length of time, only 22 minutes per episode, allows people to, I think, be able to kind of break it down and then internalize it and then reinterpret it and share it out with other people. Let's see. What's here? Just Rosie says, "I really love how Holo Janeway leads them into understanding Starfleet principles." Shar, you are a big fan of Holo Janeway.
Of course I am. I'm just a Janeway fan, period.
Mm.
So, of course, going into this show, that was the thing I was most excited about is, okay, what are they going to do with Janeway here?
Mhm.
But you know what? I've got to be really honest. I love all of these characters so freaking much. I just want to give them all a big hug.
In the first, say, 5 episodes, we have seen a certain level of storytelling where it focuses on, say, Dal and Gwyn specifically. Dal coming from the standpoint of not really trusting his elders, not really trusting authority. And then Gwyn is coming from a similar standpoint, but from a very different background. Where
Yeah.
do you think these two, where do you think their commonality is in the first 5 episodes? What brings those two together as much as it keeps them apart?
Ooh, very good question. I would say that they have both been misled by adult figures and in very different ways, but that is where they have some common ground. And I think they're just starting to really kind of understand each other as a result, that they are coming from a similar place where Gwen's father has really put his own selfish interests over her.
Mhm.
And I mean, wow, you know, when you're a child, you expect your parents to do anything for you. You depend on them. So to know that you don't have that says a lot.
Yeah.
And then Dahl, on the other hand, he's never really had good adult figures that he can trust and rely on and learn from. And we learned that from the introduction of the Ferengi character who raised him for a little while. And it does explain a little bit about why he doesn't trust and probably a little bit about the life that he
Right.
had before being a member of the Unwanted. And then just thinking about that in and of itself. Unwanted.
Mhm.
What a thing to put into your head, and especially at a tender young age. Wow, that'll take you down. So, all of that, they've been kind of beaten down by this a little bit. And now we're watching them build up by lifting each other up, if you will.
And that's where I think the aspect of the found family is really important. And maybe there's a storytelling element here that I am not really privy to, just in terms of my emotional connectivity. So there's a certain and a very specific way of having all of these characters come together. Like you said, Shar, and it's very specific in the show that they were the unwanted, these orphaned children who have been procured by the diviner through various means and through various stages of their life experiences. Some have been maybe on Tars Lamora for longer than others, but they've all come to this common ground that they must leave Tars Lamora for greener pastures, for a better life. We've been introduced to Dal and Gwen, who we just talked about. Let's talk a little bit more about some of the other characters. Rock Talk,
Sure.
who is probably the most special character, just in terms of how she has subverted our expectations of character. Zero, who is probably our first, at least in an animated form, our first most specialized, focused, androgynous character as Medusan, with
Yeah.
very specialized pronouns of they or them.
Hmm.
And Jankum Pog, who is someone who I still think we need to see a little bit more of in terms of character development. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
And Murph.
And Murph. And Murph is question mark?
Murph is Murph.
Murph is Murph. Yes. And we love Murph for being Murph.
Hmm.
Kind of gets to be, and what's great is he's not a Deus Ex Machina, but definitely has some very interesting qualities that we've seen so far.
Hmm. So let's talk about Rock Talk a little bit, because I think that
Sure.
has Rock Talk been the character that has really been kind of like the breakout, standout type of like, where did she come from, and why have we resonated, and why have we fallen in love with her so much?
I think for the audience by and large, yes, she has been the breakout character. I think in part just because she does sound like a little girl,
Hmm.
and therefore we don't know technically how old she is, and especially after the time travel episode, but we can assume that she's still a child. And I think our minds just instantly gravitate to, oh my gosh, baby, come here. I want to give you a hug, that sort of a thing.
Hmm.
And she strikes me as one of the people that has been on Tars Lamora probably for the majority of her life, the vast majority of it. She doesn't know a whole lot of anything else. And they display that through the fact that she doesn't know what to eat when she goes to the
Yeah.
replicator. She just gets her prison slop because that's all she knows to eat. That's what she
Yeah.
eats.
Right.
Gosh, I really hope she learns what cheesecake is later on and just indulges the heck
I
out
mean,
of that.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's a great comparison to where she ends up at the end of the first 10 episodes, which is pretty much like reprogramming an entire engine so that, the asteroid field on Tars Lamora would like get its gravity back. I mean, think about
Tell
it.
you what, talk about studying.
But it's also talk about evolution, an evolution of these characters in 10 episodes,
Oh my
22 minutes
gosh.
apiece. So how is it that in such a short time frame, in such a short format, no, well, I mean, unless you're watching it on Nickelodeon, you will get commercials, but
Yeah.
in such a tight time frame, in such a tight format, that such a layered and cohesive and deeply like inspiring message is always very at the forefront of almost every episode. Where do you think that comes from? And not just from like, it comes from the minds of the Hagemans, of course. No, but where do you really think that comes from in terms of that entire writing pool of basically a writing room that has never actually been in the same room together based on the last Hageman's Twitter post?
Which is a really weird thing to think about, but yeah.
Yeah.
I think the same thing until very recently happened with the Lower Decks voice actors. They had not actually worked together in the same room this whole time, and they're 2 seasons in. So massive kudos to them, one, for being able to do that. And they obviously understand the Star Trek spirit. I think that that's at the forefront of it. Like, is this Star Trek? Is this a message that we want to send out? Is it appropriate for kids? Is this something that parents would be proud to show to their kids? I mean, I'm sure they run through a whole checklist of questions as they go through every little iota of these episodes because they do one heck of a balancing act.
Mhm.
They are trying to make this kid appropriate, but they're also trying not to talk down to kids. They're not trying to bore the parents. They are putting in the morals and the messages and the meanings, the Starfleet principles, and they're telling it in these really small, condensed stories. Like you said, 22 minutes. And we've gotten more development out of 10 episodes than I think we have for some characters for a full season in other aspects of Trek.
Now, in comparing it to, say, the original, the TAS, the original animated series, and Lower Decks, having those two kind of preclude or precede Prodigy, is that something that maybe also would have persuaded fans not to watch the Prodigy until, say, about now, when it's really gotten ahead of steam, when it's really gotten these first 10 episodes, behind its belt, when it's really gotten a lot of momentum on social media? Do you think, again, going back to has it been marketed correctly or incorrectly, that's really kind of like now beside the point, but do you think that it's really now standing on its own merits after these? That's why I titled the shows like, changing, Star Trek paradigm, within 10 episodes, then within 22 minutes. Has it really found its stride? And here's a bigger question before we jump into some more comments in the chat here.
Yeah.
Has that stride been unfortunately halted in certain ways or slowed down in certain ways because of these two massive breaks that we've had
the breaks
between
are the
episodes
worst.
1 through 5 and now between 10 and 11, which is
Oh
not going to come
man.
later until this year?
If I have any grievance about this show whatsoever, it's these painstaking breaks that we're having to endure right now. And it does feel, at least right now, that 10 episodes in, we have to wait for the next 10. And it's just, no, I want them now. I'm Veruca Salt. I want them now. Gimme, 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 gimme. Because it's so good, you know?
Mhm.
They've set such a high bar for themselves. You and I have said many times to each other, every week we think that they've done an incredible job. Like, how can you make it any better? And then the following week, somehow they do.
Mhm.
We've said that for 10 weeks now. So I just want more good content, man.
Right.
Yeah, these breaks are. I think it does kill some momentum, although I would love to know, like, for kids, are they really caring about that? Are they just watching it whenever, or are they just as eager as us diehard fans, adults here,
Mhm.
like just wanting to binge it over and over and over and over and over?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I've rewatched those 10 episodes several times, in well, the first 5 after the first break and the second 5 after the second break. And then, so that's a total of at least once. Then I watched an entire 1 through 10 just recently. There's a great question here. Let me see if I can scroll back. It was
Yeah.
from Glenn. And Glenn says, I'm not sure if Prodigy was marketed well outside of Star Trek because, for better or worse, I'm in the Star Trek community, so I can't see outside that box regarding advertising. That's a great point.
Ooh, that's a really good point of view. We are seeing it from the inside looking out.
And we're clocking everything that's Star Trek related. So whether it's, the next episode of Star Trek Discovery or Star Trek Picard, Star Trek Lower Decks, Strange New Worlds,
Right.
Prodigy, that begs the bigger question. Are we getting to a point where if we don't, there's that old adage of, it's not what you've done, it's what you've done for me lately. If we don't get Star Trek Prodigy back into a proper rotation, does it get left behind in a certain way? How do we build that momentum back in the community? How do we build that momentum back online in social media conversations? Or will it sustain this break? Are we hoping that it will be like the fan base is strong enough there that it will come back and wait for it, very much like we waited for the Best of Both Worlds Part 2 after that summer of, was it
Right? And if you
89?
were
Was it?
there, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a catch 22 or a double edged sword, some cliche, where yes, waiting does make the heart grow fonder and we want it more and more and more, probably because we have to wait. But at the same time, yeah, I do wonder if it's deflating some of that momentum just because we do have to wait so long. If it were just a couple of weeks here and a couple of weeks there, maybe that wouldn't be so bad. We could get through knowing that we've got something coming right up. But right now, these are months long hiatuses. Is that a word?
Sounds like
Sure.
it. Why not? All
It
right.
is now.
Sure.
So, yeah, I'm really torn on that one. And I understand that they had to do at least the 10 episode break. And I think the 5 episode break also had to do with COVID, correct?
Yes, there has been, and the Hagemans have alluded to this in several interviews that that we have done with them for Mission Log Prodigy and other interviews out there on social media. If you have not listened to any of them, I encourage you to do so because they are so forthcoming with information and their passion and their vision for this series, and they're really coming from a very passionate, solid, honest place for and it speaks just volumes for like how good and secure like this whole series is going to be later on down the road. Now there was another point here I wanted to bring up
Okay.
from chat. Let's see here, it was from Ush. Hold on a second.
It's going so fast.
Right. Let's see. Robert, I came across, oh, I'm sorry, Robert, you did come across Mission Log. I don't know if I've sampled it yet. So much content. You're right. There is so much content there. Pardon me. Okay, so this is from Bob. I think if it was 44-ish minutes, the breaks would be okay, but at 22, it just feels like a longer break. I did have
Hmm.
that discussion. I think, Shar, we've had that discussion before, whether or not Star Trek Prodigy would benefit from, say, a longer, closer to an hour format. But I think that becomes a little bit more filler, just in terms of padding out an episode and not keeping it as structured and tight. Do you still feel the same way about it, or would you like to have seen it maybe a little bit more, have a little bit more padding to it?
Honestly, no. I feel like lengthwise, it is exactly what it needs to be. There is no padding,
Mhm.
and I don't know if condensing it into a more with commercials, you could have a 1 hour segment, essentially, 45 minutes. I don't know if that would be doing it any favors.
Okay.
One, I don't know if that would hold kids' attention as well for those who are watching. But then, yeah, I don't really know how I feel about that. I think it's great for a live action drama to be that length, but maybe not so much an animated show. I feel like an animated show is its own animal in terms of how it needs to operate and what it does, because it has to be so intentional. Like you have talked about this many times on Mission Log Prodigy, where they have no time to waste on things that maybe they'll do
Right.
because everything is such a tight budget and it's all got to be done lickety split to the very best of their ability. So yeah, you have to be so hyper focused, I think, when you do an animated show that filler just doesn't even it's not even a part of the picture.
That's like flip the script a little bit and take a look at especially with the chat, because I'd love to know what your favorites are too. But let's take it like I don't want to say just throw out say what are your favorite episodes of the 10. Let's take a look at it from how we actually discussed it in real time, Shar. So there
Yeah.
were the first 5. So there was Lost and Found, which was a two episode pilot. So it came in at around 44, 45 minutes, 222-ish minutes episodes. So there was Lost and Found, and then there was Dreamcatcher, and then Terra Firma, I believe it was.
Uh-huh.
And then, or is it? I'm sorry, I missed one in there. I always miss one in there.
Oh, bugger.
So it's like, yeah. So anyway, but then the back half, it was Kobayashi. It was Kobayashi, First Contact, CON hyphen tact,
Uh-huh.
right? And
Yes.
then there was Time Amok, and then there was A Moral Star Part 1 and 2.
There we
So
go.
yeah. So in those first 5 episodes, did you have a specific favorite, or did they all feel like one specifically long segmented movie?
We're talking about the first 5,
The first
correct?
5, yeah.
Yeah, that does feel like a lot of build up because by episode 5, I'm thinking about this show completely differently than I am in episode 1, and you need all of the earned moments that happen in 5 to be built from everything that comes before it. So it's really hard to single out one episode and say, "Yeah, that was really good." No, they're all building towards something even better than the sum of its parts, at least in my opinion.
Starstruck. Sorry.
Is that what it was?
Starstruck.
Okay. There it
All right.
is.
Yeah. I was like, there's there. It's almost there. Yeah.
Well, you're able to pull it out. Bravo.
Yeah. I mean, I felt the same way. I think that, and if you really kind of take a look at the first 5, they really do feel like a long movie. And I actually said this, I think, on social media before. If you could actually take like all the breaks, because there are breaks, even like in the Paramount Plus streaming, there are like these little bitty snippets where you can add in your commercials
Sure.
for like Nickelodeon, whoever's going to have it later. If you could take those out and then just have everything knit together in one like perfect like 2 hour-ish mini movie, I would
Mhm.
love to see that. I hope they do that like with a DVD or with 4K or whatever they're going to produce hopefully later.
Right?
Hopefully, right?
They better.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that is going to be a cool experience.
But
I
the
mean,
second, I'm sorry,
they
sure, go
should
ahead.
just do it.
But
They
the
should just
second
do it.
5 episodes felt like they were specifically made to target specific characters so that you saw the growth of those characters. Do you feel that that's correct?
Yeah, I do agree. Which I guess maybe makes it a nice way to break it up a little bit. Like
Mhm.
not thematically, but I don't know, angle wise. I'm not exactly sure how I'm trying to put that, but yeah, because then we have Doll going through the Kobayashi Maru. We have Gwen having her moments, realizing that basically her father's betraying her. We have Rock Talk saving the day by spending who knows how long trying to get everybody back together. Everybody has their moment to shine, with maybe some exception to um, Jankum Pog, who you mentioned earlier hasn't gotten enough love. I totally agree. We need to see a heck of a lot more of his backstory. He's probably been the most neglected out of anybody as far as that goes so far. But look, I
Mhm.
get it. They've done a lot with what they've done so far. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying this is one area where we could use more.
One of the characters that we have not yet talked about, like at length, and I know that she means a lot to you, from the real character to the holographic character, and that's Captain Janeway. In this case, it's hologram Janeway, and then eventually it will be, and I hope everyone has seen episodes 1 through 10, because I am going to say a spoiler here, Admiral Janeway.
Yes.
At the end of episode 10.
We're getting so many incarnations of Janeway. How can I not love that?
Char's my go-to expert on all things Voyager. She always will be, for just with her sheer knowledge of that series. Have they done Janeway right, in your opinion?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. This was such a good idea to bring Janeway into the fold. And somebody in the comments long ago asked, is Janeway sort of like the Miss Frizzle of this show from Magic School Bus? Going into Prodigy, that is exactly how I envisioned that would be. And she kind of is, because she's guiding the kids, but she's not quite as hands-on as you might think until you watch. I'll put it that way, without trying to spoil too much. This is absolutely such a great logical progression for the character of Janeway. She's always had a great nurturing instinct to teach and to mentor, and this is just a fantastic outlet for all of that. Kate Mulgrew doing voice acting. Yes, please. It's probably going to get a lot harder to have a lot of the legacy Star Trek actors doing more live action stuff when you can get them into a booth, have them record, and they don't have to wear any costumes, don't have to do any makeup, yada, yada, and still be a part of the franchise. Every way around, I feel like this is such a good move. How about you?
I think that from what I understand about, Captain Janeway or Catherine Janeway or Holo Janeway, I feel that Kate is bringing so much of kind of like the spirit of the character, because it's not her, it's the hologram of Janeway. So it has to resonate the core competency of who Captain Janeway is, or Admiral Janeway. It has to resonate who she is, not only as just a person, but who she is as a Starfleet officer, which begs the bigger question. Where's Chakotay?
The question on everybody's mind, right?
Okay, now let me dial this back before we start really moving forward with this. We did not know about Chakotay's appearance in Star Trek Prodigy until Robert Beltran shared that. He shared that with everyone at a certain time. Would it have been logical if we saw a Chakotay, and wouldn't have been as big a surprise if we didn't hear about that spoiler? Or would that have just blown the minds of like most of the fans that are watching this because of Janeway?
I have a feeling the Voyager fans, not knowing Chakotay is in this show, would have just flipped their collective lids, and we'd be all on Twitter just, oh my God, everything in all caps, Chakotay, and we're already doing that a little bit, but it would be really amplified. I mean, the fact that Robert Beltran told everybody and didn't, if he had an NDA, did not care. I don't know if it really, I don't know, it doesn't have a significant impact, because it was still cool to see him. And there's still this huge mystery that we don't know all the answers to, as to what his character was doing, why, what is going on. And it's going to be really cool. At least I hope that we're going to have Admiral Janeway figuring this out, because she's coming.
See, that's why I know that you're an expert, because she has.
And to see, I'm hoping we'll have an actual interaction between real Janeway and real Chakotay, and we figure out, okay, why was Holo Janeway created for the Protostar? I mean, we still have so many questions, as many as they did try to answer in the first 10. They left off in a good spot, but they still left us wanting a lot more.
Well, I think that that's really kind of like the key to having a tight 22-minute episode, is that you can solidify the narrative points, and also drop in some of these really, really tasty tidbits of treats, or nuggets of trivia, or all these little teasers that make you want more. And it doesn't take a lot. All it takes is an image. And let's speak of some of the images that we did see originally of Chakotay, because I was screenshotting those. I was sending them to Char.
You were.
What is going on with that uniform? Now we have.
Oh yeah, we were so over analyzing that uniform.
Over analyzing it, which was great, because that's what we do.
We're nerds. We are Star Trek nerds. Yes, we are.
And this is a question that we can probably send to the chat and see what you guys think about it. So
let's do it.
when you're watching Prodigy, what are you looking for? What things strike your fancy? When you're seeing new things like new phasers, new pads, new uniforms, new tech, the new Delta, things like that. Are you, and I'm sure that there are a lot of Voyager fans in the chat, are you looking at it and saying, this makes sense in this timeline, or we just have to accept that as being, again, just part of the Star Trek merchandising juggernaut that has their fingerprints all over all this type of marketing? Because we are going to talk a little bit more about like the products that are going to be coming in the future.
Oh, yeah, we have to. And really, we at the heart of it do know that that is why we have so many different uniforms and deltas and technology props. And the cosplay is going to be insane once convention season really gets going. I mean, wow.
Right. Hopefully,
Yeah.
in say Star Trek Chicago, we'll see a little bit more with some of the Prodigy uniforms, because that has a
Maybe.
very specific look and feel,
It
and people are
does.
still trying to figure out like what the hierarchy is with the jutting out points of why things are kind of like some of the angles are longer than the others, et cetera, et cetera. But then there's this wonderful through line that's it's there if you actually pay attention to it and keep score of the piped flap that now is part of uniforms. Admiral Janeway had it on her
Yes.
uniform. Her Dax looking like Trill navigation officer had it on her uniform. On lower decks, obviously that's very prevalent on their uniforms.
Yeah, it's a
Right?
variation. It does make sense. There is sort of like a logical order to it all. It is meshing together between Lower Decks, this show, and even Picard.
Rafi had it on her uniform at Starfleet headquarters when she was consulting with Picard after Elnor graduated. So,
Right.
I'm sorry if that was a spoiler for anyone. It wasn't really a big spoiler. It's not like major stuff, but it wasn't
Yeah.
a picture. So yes, D. So we love our merch. Let's talk a little bit more about some of the merch that's been discussed in some of the
Sure.
interviews with the Hagemans.
All right. All right. And then I have a couple of questions for you, but let's get into the merch.
Oh no, actually, go ahead for the questions, and then we'll go for the merch.
Okay. Well, the primary one on my mind is
Mhm.
you're thinking about going to Star Trek Las Vegas later this year, correct?
That's the plan.
Okay.
Mhm.
If you're doing a Prodigy cosplay, what are you doing?
I would probably do Murph, because then I can cover myself with Jello and walk around and eat a lot of things. No, I'm just kidding.
Just go up to the bar and nom.
Well, it's a good question, but it's a tough question because we are going to get some new episodes hopefully before August, before Star Trek Las
Gosh, I
Vegas,
hope so.
right?
Yeah.
But if for anything though, I just want to wear one of those Prodigy uniforms, the Protostar uniforms.
They're hot.
They really
They look
are.
so good. They are sleek.
I really like them and I like what they stand for. But if for anything, and this is what I love about certain costume choices, certain wardrobe choices in Star Trek. As long as you wear the Delta, you can pretty much like wear anything around it. I mean, Neelix wore the Delta. He wasn't in a Starfleet uniform.
Yeah.
There are other characters that have worn the Delta across Star Trek that they're not really in the Star. I mean, I can wear one with a Hawaiian shirt and still be completely in canon, right? With
Absolutely.
Star Trek.
Why not? Yeah, you're in Vegas. Be comfortable. It's hot
Yeah.
there.
So, but I really do love that uniform. It's actually probably one of my most emotional moments that I've experienced in Star Trek Prodigy is when I saw all of them step onto the bridge, all the kids step onto the bridge in their uniforms. I'm like, this is that moment. This is the moment where we watch them grow up.
We have watched them grow up, and they've grown up a lot in just the short time that we've gotten to know them. And that was such an earned moment. That's one thing I really think this show does exceptionally well is when they go for moments like that, man, is the payoff so good because the buildup is just spot on.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
it hits you good.
That's where I think there's a lot of success in this series for me. And I know for a lot of people, the moments are earned, the payoffs are there. And I've said this before on social media, when I broadcast this for Mission Log Prodigy, I say, never ever discount a small detail in this series ever. Even the
Right?
smallest details have
Yeah,
significant meaning.
because we're watching.
And it's kind of like the economies of scale. So the economy of a small detail in a 22-minute episode, when it pays off, it has to pay off big in another 22-minute episode.
And it does. It does. It's again that massive balancing act that they're doing that the writers are making it look so easy, but it can't be at all. They're just juggling so many things, but man, are they doing such a great job putting this show together.
Glenn brings up a good point here. He says, I'm trying to just take it all in and not nitpicking details. Am I going easy on it because it's an animated family show? Possibly. I don't see why that's a bad thing, you know?
Yeah. I mean, just because some people are being nitpicky and looking at every detail doesn't mean you have to. There's plenty of shows that I watch that I am not looking for that at all. I just want to sit back and enjoy it. One of
Mhm.
them is Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I do not overthink that show. I just watch it and
Mhm.
enjoy it for what it is. Star Trek, well, I've been on the internet too long. I do look for the details. I do try to overanalyze everything about this show. And you and I have both done this with Babylon 5 because we've seen it so much.
True.
But there's others where it's okay. And how you want to experience the show is just fine.
Right. And I think that as long as the story like resonates and it rings true for you and you get the morals and meanings and messages and you get, you know, the inspiration that I think that Star Trek brings,
Hmm.
to viewers, however it brings you that inspiration, that's the most meaningful thing. There's no right or
Sure.
wrong to watching any of this. If people want to
No.
get into the weeds and look at the schematics and look at the ships and look at the numbers and look at the tips on it, like all that stuff.
Yeah, you can if you want. And if
Sure,
you don't want to
that's
split details, are you still enjoying yourself? Well, then that's what matters.
exactly. And if you come away with that and find like minds that you want to share that information with, and you're doing it in a positive and healthy discourse, that's
Yeah.
where the magic is, right?
Man, when you
Yeah.
can hit it, because
Ex-
the internet being what it is, doesn't always go that way, but when it does, it's fun.
Um,
Anyway, let's
before
talk
I
merch.
before we got into the merch, though, I mean, there's a really good
Oh,
point here that I've been trying to follow Robert's chat here. Norman Shar, do you think that the show will get another hype when it starts streaming outside of North America or when it starts airing on Nickelodeon? I think so.
that is a really good thing to point out. Yes, I think so too.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I hope, and I do believe that Nickelodeon is probably going to start advertising, when it returns. I have to believe,
I would have to think so.
yeah, that
Yeah,
they're
and I think
probably,
heavily too, because
yeah.
then we are going to get the first complete season, and I'm sure they're going to be playing the entirety of it when they have it all the time.
The weird thing is that I don't really follow Nickelodeon per se as say like a parent of children that have Nickelodeon as a staple in their entertainment, per se.
Yeah,
So,
same.
I don't really know when that's going to happen, but we will obviously cover that, for Mission Log when it comes out. But at the same time, though, I hope that parents are paying attention to their schedule so that they can put that on there, and
Sure.
hopefully like those 10 episodes will all be played at once and then lead into the second 10 episodes, which last thing
Right?
I'm going to say before we get into the merch, the last 10 episodes are going to be played in one single chunk. No 2 5-episode chunks. The Hagemans have said this and they have put
Oh,
that
thank
out there.
goodness.
So, and it was always their plan to have two specific 10 episode segments, two 10 episode segments for a 20 episode run. They wanted
Right.
a specific story to be told in the first 10 and a specific story to be told in the back 10. That's what we're
Yeah.
going to get later on this year.
And even not seeing these last 10 episodes, I do feel like they landed in a good place to take a break that they had to take. So bravo for doing that. It's still tough waiting. Patience is hard.
This patient's going to be hard for the merch too, because the merch isn't going to be coming until later this year. But
Not for a little while, but it is coming. We're getting some announcements. So let's
yes.
talk about them.
All right. So have you ordered anything yet? Because there's stuff for pre-order.
Not yet, which you think I'd be all over it, but I'm actually waiting for a little more to come out just to see what it's going to be. And then that way I put an order in immediately for what I really, 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 really want.
Tell me what you want, what you really, really want. I'm sorry. That's not
Not Spice
fair.
Girls. That's what
No.
I don't
Okay.
want.
Yeah.
I
No.
want I want Prodigy merch all over the place. I want Prodigy t-shirts. I want the plushy Murph. I want the action figures. I want a Protostar playset. I want everything.
Right. And I think, one of the great things that the Hagemans have said in their interviews in the past is that Prodigy lends itself to be very toyetic. Toyetic is a
That's a
word.
word.
Well, that's the word that they used when they were like doing stuff with Trollhunters and they were doing stuff with Lego. Toyetic. So it's a very toyetic show. I'm sure that they had toys in mind because one of the things that I think that draws a lot of us to Prodigy is the difference in the body styling and body shaping and the silhouettes.
Totally.
What
You can
we
recognize each character just by that, which is
by
really
that.
cool.
Exactly. That's the Matt Groening effect. If you know The Simpsons, you know that you know every character of The Simpsons based solely on their silhouette. And I think that's really important when you see that in Star Trek Prodigy, that not every single one of our heroic characters looks exactly the same.
It's very cool. And it's a
Right.
nice message to put out there.
And we're going to get that in our lineup of action figures. So there was an image that was posted not too long ago on social media. You can look that up. It's all over. And it teases a few figures, not all the figures, but a few figures. So we saw Jank and Pog, we saw Zero, we saw Dal and Gwen and Murph in a picture,
right,
in a display picture. Who we did not see, we did not see Hologram Janeway, Hologram Janeway or Admiral Janeway or Rock Talk.
Right.
So
yeah, which did generate a little bit of noise, like, hey, where are they? But they're coming. They're coming.
Right. Oh, Glenn, great idea. I want a squishy Murph that's Stretch Armstrong, only more cuddly. Oh my God, that would be amazing.
What'd be really cool? I just thought of this is like a stretchy Murph that like it's also serves as a little bit of like a storage device where you can put like, your toy balls and whatnot in it, your Nerf footballs and your basketball. He can eat them. And then when you need them, you just eject them out.
Murph has so many applications. You can do Murph Silly Putty. You can Murph Play-Doh, right?
Yes.
You can make a Murph stress ball. You squeeze them.
Oh, that needs to happen for sure.
All the Murphs you can make, like
and
Christmas
of course,
ornaments.
The Murph plushies. Somebody mentioned that if that comes out, which I'm sure it will, that'll be a big hit. Given that there's so many people who have already made their own Murph plushies, either for themselves or their kids, absolutely that will be a big deal.
Isn't it amazing, like how art imitates life, and life is going to imitate art? Because Rock Talk in Time Amok made her own plushie Murph,
she
could sleep with him and be comforted
so
by that, right?
And therefore, it's canon.
And of course, it's canon. And then there are fans out there, especially we've seen out there on the Twitterverse, have been sharing their own stuffed homemade plushie Murphs.
Yes, and it's very cool to see people getting creative and making whatever it is that they're doing. I love it all. I love seeing everything from the art to the plushie Murphs to the cosplay. I saw the most incredible Goth Janeway already.
Oh, that's right.
I can't wait.
That news was very big when Janeway was leaked out, and the Goth version of Janeway. So,
Goth Janeway rules.
Yeah, that's going to be a thing, right?
Absolutely.
And even if it's not a thing,
savvy, I would do Goth Janeway cosplay for sure.
I can guarantee you people are going to be buying 2 versions of Janeway when she's released so that they can customize that action figure.
100%. Yeah, if there's not eventually a Goth Janeway action figure, I think maybe something's wrong.
Oh, there's definitely going to be. She's going
to be. There better be.
She's the premium toy, in the case, kind of like the way that, say, the Shadow Spider-y type of action figure was like one in every like 13 cases of toys, right? So,
ooh, it'd be kind of cool. Maybe this is, coming down the pike is we've got our main lineup coming out, but then we still don't have anything like the Diviner or any of the darker characters. What if Goth Janeway's in that lineup and they all kind of release in that wave?
I think that's actually a really solid idea. I think that you're going to have your heroes, obviously, but you also have to have your villains, so you can have your heroes and villains fight for the Protostar, hopefully, which is a toy that will come out, so that they can have their little fight that they had with the Vines, on Terra
You've got
Firma.
to have all the toys, right? You've got to have the tricorder. You've got to have the phaser set on stun.
Yes. So when you accidentally shoot yourself, you shoot yourself in the brain.
Right. And I'm hoping sometime down the line, I have no idea if this is actually coming, but but this Voyager 2, Prodigy games. Interactive games with kids. And it doesn't really matter if they're geared toward kids, just like the show. We'll play them too.
I will play a Pac-Man version with Murph as Pac-Man any day of the week.
That would be brilliant.
Pac-Murph.
Pac-Murph.
Right?
Okay, game developers.
That's a TM. I'm TMing that. I'm TMing Pac-Murph. You can't have that.
Yeah,
forget you, Namco. One of my favorite manufacturers of anything Star Trek is Eagle Moss, and I can't wait. I cannot wait for them to start advertising, if they will do so. If they have the license to do so, advertising not just the Protostar, but the Rev 12, because I want to have, the diviner ship as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to have both, right?
Right. Oh, and also the new Dauntless that we saw at the end of episode 10.
Yes. We've got some things to learn about that ship that I'm sure are very cool. We're
Mhm.
going to have that. We're going to have to spend so much money. But gladly. I
Oh,
want to support the show, and I think part of the reason why we don't have the merch yet is because they needed to establish that, one, this was a show that was going to hit, and
right.
then of course then you've got production time. And Norm, you know a lot about that, just working in graphic design for products. It
Right.
takes a while.
It does. You have to be able to obviously talk to the vendor, talk to licensors. Obviously, there's going to probably be some supply issues right now with plastics, with resins, with molds,
Oh
with
yeah.
labor, et cetera, et cetera. Shipping, all that stuff has been so directly affected, still by the pandemic, because it's still affecting the supply chain on a global scale. So yes, we're gonna have to wait, maybe longer in some cases than others. But, until then, though, I don't think that there's any really shortage of enthusiasm uh, for Prodigy. As we're wrapping up our show, I would like to get a little bit more, comments from the chat, just to see like if there's anything that we missed that you'd like to ask us about. But
Lightning round. We got to
yeah,
do it now.
there's just so much passion for the show, and it
Yeah. We could
it
go
moves
on all
me.
night,
Like,
but we can't.
every week, on social media, seeing it, like every week, seeing people just pouring out their hearts about this series, about what they've learned, from every age group, from every walk of like the Star Trek stripe. Here's the thing: it's like, and I don't want to like say this like disingenuously, but there are pockets of Star Trek fans out there that are very vocal one way or the other, and mostly in a negative way, on social media. I have not yet once, like encountered negative energy from that segment of the Star Trek audience for Prodigy.
And maybe it's because the show is just that freaking good. Or is it just the fact that maybe they are out there, but to heck with them, shoe fly? That's all they are.
But I usually like will see a comment or something sideways or something, passive aggressive. I'm like, no. Like, I think that when people really invest themselves and engage themselves in the social media space for Star Trek Prodigy, I think that maybe that there's like a natural filter where fans are like, it's just, or some fans, the fans that I'm talking about, are like, it's just an animated show. I'm not even going to bother with it, which keeps them,
Maybe
you
that,
know,
yeah.
away
But
from, the
it's
show.
also maybe not a good look to be ragging on a kid's show, if
That,
you're looking at it
right.
that way.
Right. And
And then
again,
those of us who've actually watched the show, we know how freaking good it is, and that it's made by people who have put so much TLC into this show. You can tell that they love Star Trek. You can tell that they love what they do. They've poured their heart and soul into it. And I think we recognize that. We see it. And therefore, we pour our hearts and souls back. It's this
uh,
beautiful exchange.
one Trek fan here says, I heard them in the beginning when they released the characters. They didn't like the animation before they even watched a single minute. Yeah,
That sounds typical. Yeah.
I do remember that up to a point, when, the Nickelodeon
Yeah.
advertisements and like the imagery and stuff like that. I mean, that was out there, but I haven't really seen a lot of that stuff since.
Yeah. I think it's
Right.
all but evaporated, and that's great. We don't need it. Well, Norm,
Yep.
we have about 2 minutes left, so we've got some things to do. How
Mhm.
about we do contact information in case people want to get a hold of us?
Well, thanks everyone for joining us. And if you have any more comments, you can please send them to us at zocalomarketplace@gmail.com. You can also find this show, Deep Space Franchise, and all of its subsequent shows, and then the Zocalo proper on our channel here on YouTube. That is the Zocalo. So you can find us here. You
Yeah.
can also find us on Twitter at Zocalo Livecast. Shar, where can all of our friends here and fans follow you on social media?
Best place to keep in touch is on Twitter. My handle is Oh the Profanity. And
And you
Norm?
can and you can find me, as you can see on the little snippets there. If you want to copy those down,
Yeah, they're right there.
you can find me at Lounge Lizard on Twitter and Instagram. And then you can also find me as one of the co-hosts for Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast, at missionlog@roddenberry.com. And then you can also follow us on Mission Log Prodigy on Twitter at ML_Prodigy, where Ashley V. Robinson and I talk about Prodigy on an episode per episode basis, as well as supplementary episodes with interviews and the like.
Yeah, don't miss that. That's really good quality content if you love Prodigy. All right, and let's give our thanks to everybody at Virtual TrekCon for having us and for organizing this thing. It's been such a fun weekend. We've got more to come. And we've got another panel coming right up. It's at the end of the description of this video. It is all about the physics of Star Trek with Lawrence Krauss. So you don't want to miss that. That's going to be good.
All right, so everyone, thanks for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your virtual TrekCon, and we will see you sometime later. So let us know if you like this. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Take care, everybody.